Okay, thank you very much and welcome to my talk. I'm talking about extension and modularization of VuFind, and I'm not only talking about some ideas on this topic, but about some questions as well. My name is Hajo Seng. I'm working at the State and University Library in Hamburg, and my job is being responsible, technically responsible for our VuFind catalogs. We are running them. So why extending VuFind? VuFind is quite a nice software, and it's coming with lots of features, and it's highly configurable. So why should there be a need to extend VuFind? Isn't it enough for us? I just give you some examples. I talked in earlier VuFind earlier German VuFind Summits about some of them, and just to tell you why we extended VuFind in some cases. So one is, for example, that we have something like a regions catalog where the region is in particular Hamburg, and we got quite a lot of universities in Hamburg with different libraries, and some of those libraries have consist of different libraries as well. So we got a quite complex structure of scientific libraries here in Hamburg. And in order to get this presented on the catalog in a proper way and presented as well the CI of the respective different libraries, we had to do some develop some extensions for VuFind. Another one is something which is a real extension of functionality. Is at our university we have a delivery service where members of the university can search for articles out of journals or chapters out of books, and they can order those articles, and which are then scanned and delivered to these university members. So we had to do some extension in order to get this done as well. Another one is related to very particular requirements. So, for example, we have a special publication year facet where you can drill down to a single year by century first, and then decades, and so on. So these are some examples for why we choose to extend VuFind. And why are we using modular design in doing it? We have chosen, we have decided to do that in a modular way because we are working on developing in a consortium of 7 libraries in northern Germany, some of them with and some of them without programming powers. All in all, we have, of course, like any library in the world, way too less programming powers, but it's so we have to choose a way how we can do this kind of consortial development of VuFind extensions. And our aim is to adjust the catalog front end to the specific needs of each of those libraries, and we want to do some kind of shared developments of VuFind extensions so that we can bundle our programming powers in doing it, and we want we want to share features with other libraries. And our aim is regarding local functionality, which means functionality which is related to very specific needs of one or the other library. We are just creating a module, but with functionality of a more global interest. We are our aim is to prepare pull requests at VuFind and temporarily create modules to hold those and hold this. And in fact, I got a real bundle of features in order to prepare them and pull request them. And it's I'm need some time at least to do it, but that's our aim to do with our with our extensions, VuFind extensions. So our approach in extending modules is mainly based on extending namespaces. So we use this namespace feature of Send or Laminas, and just to capture our extensions in a specific namespace. For example, our delivery service is completely captured within the delivery namespace, as you can see it on the top on the right-hand side. And with the themes which come up or may come up with some of those modules, we are using the mixin architecture, which works very fine for us. And we are using it by having a name convention, so that those template snippets which are provided by those module-related mixins have the module name and name of the template, which includes those snippets in its name. And we have a basic mixin with only empty templates, so you can in some of these themes without breaking anything, and without breaking anything. With language files and config files, we are just using the possibility of parent inclusion of parent this parent ini feature or this parent YAML feature to include those configurations files if it's needed. And there are other issues. Maybe you want to extend that database, or you need some more vendor modules for your application. So, for example, for our delivery service, we use an XML RPC request. So we want to have this sent or later than Laminas XML RPC module. We use composer snippets to get them into it. And just as a remark, actually, we are working on VuFind 5 basis, but we are quite shortly in coming in bringing it to a VuFind 7. Yes. So with the namespace, we use as a convention that themes and modules have the same name, with one exception, that the modules, they come up with the capitalized letter, while the theme names don't have any uppercase letters in their names. With the module config PHP, the inheritance is quite native. You don't have to do anything with it. You just add it, and that's it. With dealing with the view helpers, we have a naming convention as well, so that the directory where the view helper objects are located have the same name as the theme they are related to. And regarding Ajax handlers and controllers, we are more or less avoiding dependencies and inheritance. You can do it, but in most of the cases, maybe in any case, it's not necessary to do it. So finally, I want to focus on, within the discussion, I want to focus on all the other classes and objects within the module, and especially with the plugin managers. So most of the cases, modules have objects which are not dependent on each other, which are different. and so you don't run into problem with those. But there are some popular objects within VuFind backend, which is used by several modules. One example for those popular objects is the Solar Default Backend Factory. The Solar Default Backend Factory collects all those features which are needed to create requests for the Solar server and pre-process the answer it gets. It's needed by quite, or there are some extensions needed or some changes needed in more than only one module. So for example, it's needed in our libraries module, which is the one with which we can make some kind of regions catalog out of VuFind, or it's as well used by the record driver module. The record driver module makes all the metadata you can see in the catalog configurable by only a YAML configuration file, so you don't need to do anything within the source code in order to change the behavior of presentation of the metadata on the catalog. And there are other modules as well, as for example, the Lucene helper module, which makes some aspects of the Lucene syntax helper configurable. And all of them need this Solar Default Backend Factory. And so you have got a dependency of objects within this stack of modules. And this is not very nice because of this, the order of the modules is very important. If you change the order of modules, the whole thing will break. And if you just want to plug out or plug in a certain module, you have to change the use declaration. So you have to go into the source code to do a change. Even it's only one specific place where you have to do these changes. You have to do it there. You can avoid those kind of extension chains within Ajax handlers, controllers, and view helpers. We are trying to do that, trying hard to do that, even though you have have a plugin manager within Ajax handlers where you have to take care about as well. But you can't avoid it everywhere. So with plugin managers, the issue is that the main information of plugin managers is located within properties. You can't just extend them in some way. You just have to override this. And so you have, if you have a stack of plugin managers and you have a lot of aliases and factories doubled within this properties of these managers, and if you plug in or plug out one of the modules, you have really to take care that everything is at its right place, and it's really easy to get into trouble by doing it, because you have very carefully keeping these lists of aliases and factories in tune. It's that has been the VuFind 5 layout, and within the VuFind 7 layout, it looks a little bit different. I'm not really deep enough into it just to know if there is might be another solution for this issue within the VuFind 7 syntax. Maybe there comes up some solution within the discussion, but yes. So as a summary, in working with this kind of modular way of extending VuFind, everything is fine with themes by using mixins and special naming conventions. it's quite fine with language and configuration files. So it's not a very nice solution, but it's at least it's some kind of solution. And with modules, everything works fine with the module config PHP, and with naming conventions and avoidance of inheritance, you can keep view helpers, Ajax handlers, and controllers without having any troubles. But with all other classes and objects, you have to take have to have a special look on this, and you have to manipulate, maybe use declarations in order to plug them in or plug them out. And the situation is even worse with plugin managers. You have to override and this way double the properties of these plugin managers if they are stacked in a way I showed previously. And with others aspects as database extensions or extensions of the composers, you can use additional configuration snippets, which works fine sometimes, for example, with database extensions, but not so fine in other cases with the composer, for example. So with our aim to having pluggable extensions, we have the situation that concerning the module stack, it's not really pluggable, but it's almost pluggable. It's only very few aspects which are obstacle in plugging modules in and out. With translation and configuration files, you have to change parent declarations, and so it's not in this way pluggable as well, but there is no source code is affected. It's only configuration files you have to touch this way. And everything is fine with themes. They are completely pluggable. And with other topics, it's with others aspects, I think it's another topic, particularly this composer extensions works not very fine, but I don't want to focus on this in my talk. Okay, that's I'm finished now with my ideas, and I hope I got the questions I have clear, and I'm very curious about the discussions we will have.
Thank you very much, Hajo. So we're now open for discussions. Again, as I said, if anyone wants to discuss with us by voice, please use the raise your hand feature by Zoom, and otherwise you can also use question and answers in the chat for typing.
I suspect I may be a natural person to comment first in this situation, but I certainly don't mean to cut others off if they have anything to say. So a few initial thoughts, one being that it might be helpful to share some specific examples of some of these problems just so I can better understand, but I will attempt to answer based on my initial assumptions, and I apologize if they're not 100% correct. Regarding the issue of having to change use declarations, I think that's perhaps the one I understand the least, but I think that it may be a sign that some of our factories are doing too much work and are too complex, and we may want to actually break things down into more distinct services that get composed. I know some of the back-end factories are currently doing a lot of work, and that may just not be ideal. Another thing to be aware of, if you're not already, is the concept in Laminas of delegator factories, which is a way that you can define additional factories that perform extra work on objects after they've been produced by initial factories. So for some use cases, it may be possible to have modules define delegator factories that apply extra settings and work on top of the default factories that are already defined in the core of the code. So I'd look at that if you haven't already. Regarding the matter of plugin managers, it shouldn't be necessary to extend plugin managers to change, pardon me, their definitions. The properties that are included in the core plugin managers are intended to be defaults, but every plugin manager has a corresponding section in the module.config.php that can be used to override all of those defaults or add additional settings to them. So the intent was that you would almost never extend a plugin manager. You would just fill in the configuration setting in your module.config, and then I would expect all of those configurations to get merged together in the order of module loading. I can still imagine there might be some situations where conflicts emerged, but I don't fully understand why it would be necessary to extend the class. So I think maybe there's a misunderstanding there. And the last thought I had was with regard to the idea of having to load parent configurations and the complexities there. I wonder if one solution might be to come up with some convention where VuFind will look through all loaded modules for configurations or language files in a particular location. And since that might be expensive in the majority of cases where it's not used, maybe we need a new directive for the configuration files to turn on this module-based content loading. And I haven't thought that through at all, so that's a half-baked idea, but something that might be worth discussing in more detail when time permits. Was any of that helpful?
Oh, yes, it was. Thank you thank you very much. Especially this issue with this plugin managers. I haven't been aware of this. That it could be overwritten by the module config PA within the module configuration, and I'm going to try that. And I'm not. I don't know really exactly. I have heard about the delegator factories, but I'm not experienced with it. So I think I should give them should give it a try as well in order to see if it solves our issues.
Great, and as always, please feel free to email me with more details and more questions as needed. I definitely am very interested in making these problems easier to solve.
Okay, thank you.
I just added to chat one link where you can see our module config. So if you need some examples, feel free to take a look.
And if you look at the core VuFind modules module.config, there's a section called plugin managers that lists all the key names for every single plugin manager you can override. So that might be a useful reference.
Okay.
So any other comments and or questions regarding the modularization in VuFind? Okay, there doesn't appear to be that much, so many questions right now. Maybe just meanwhile, maybe somebody's typing the question he or she wants to ask. From our side, I mean, we have some of the same problems. Well, I mean, basically, it comes with the use case that we are using VuFind for quite some catalogs, and we have exactly the same challenges to customize the catalogs for regional requirements. But what I would like to comment is that the whole inheritance feature, especially regarding the configuration files, which sometimes is quite complex, but then again, we just recently implemented or the YAML inheritance, which I think was included in VuFind 5 or 4, I think. And this is quite working well and is now reducing also for other YAML files that we are using for customization things. that is working quite well and allows us now to reduce at least the number of configuration files. And yeah, so that is helpful. But again, there's just one issue, I think, regarding the configuration.